Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Sloppy Lab. This is Bottom of the Beaker, the weekly show about the design, the ducks, and the strategy of Keyforge. Everybody, and I do mean everybody's favorite unique deck game. I am JT Russell, he who slices the gully, and with me tonight is a man who says he's really getting into the Dungeon Crawler Carl book series, but really just can't stand the hunting grounds. I don't know what that's all about, but maybe my co-host can tell me a thing or two about that. How are we doing this evening? Quick draw 3457.
I'm good. That makes two of us that don't know what that's all about. I think when you said Dungeon Crawler, I was like, okay, is this like an old video game? But no, then I remembered you were talking about a book series with someone recently, and I don't remember where.
Yeah.
I don't read books either, so.
Don't read books either. I'm on my second read of this series right now in preparation for going to a signing for the upcoming book. That's the next one in the series, and yeah, it is the same one.
And that signing is why we're gonna go on vacation, isn't it?
It's part of it, yeah. Signing and then work trips, and then like I'm gonna make our schedules for the next couple of weeks a little bit dicey. Which book series is it? It's the Dungeon Crawler Carl book series by Matt Dinneman. Fudge, a question from the chat. Yeah, which has been, I mean, I don't know if that's everybody's cup of tea, but I've been enjoying it, and it's getting a little bit of popularity at present.
So like the Dungeon Crawler, I assume this is like an old video game reference.
Boy, I don't know how this is gonna sound really weird, but the sort of premise of the book, and this isn't spoiling anything, but the premise of the series is like these aliens come by, they want to harvest resources from planet Earth, and in doing this, they like progressively collapse layers of the planet, and humans have the option to like go through each of these layers and participate in a like dungeon crawl experience a la Dungeons and Dragons, and the aliens have like high-tech AI and stuff that I don't know, it sounds very weird, it sounds funky, but it's a lot of fun.
At least it's an original idea. I criticize all the new movies and TV shows and everything that's out today because they're all remakes, but at least this is original, right?
It's original, and I will say there's a lot of like progressively more thinly veiled, I should say, like social commentary that comes out as you go deeper into the books, but it's like a very like fun fantasy like wrapper around all of it, just about like capitalism and exploitation and all these things that like really come to the forefront as you're like going through the dungeon with this crawler and his cat, and it's a lot of fun. It's a very fun book, enjoyable even if you ignore all of the other hidden messages and stuff. Yeah.
All right. This has been the best-selling list with JT Russell.
There you go. So well, I guess that's kind of on theme, because after this quick draw, you and I are going to commentate a Kagi match, one of the Kagi top cut matches, and we should kind of mention that's now in full swing. But one of the players in that match, if I'm not mistaken, is Jace versus Grishhammer. Is that right?
Yeah.
And of course, Jason of Warcast for Fameforge, and they do love their book reviews. So
it's true. You're right. You're tying it all together right now.
A little thematic tie-in there, Yeah.
I appreciate that. So yeah, we are going to be streaming a Kagi match after this a little bit later on. Kagi Top Cuts happening. ABR playoffs are happening, which we're all watching with great interest. These are all things happening at the moment in the Keyforge tournament scene. We're actually missing the end of the Riku and Ian Yoink game right now. Duty calls. Here we are.
Wow, an exciting match too. I hope that we we sign off tonight to get some good news for the Strugs. The Strug Cartel hoping to get one up over Cosmic Recompense in this playoff battle. Riku's been talking a lot of trash, so really nice to knock him down a peg here. So we'll see.
Well, we shall see. Probably in a few minutes. But in any case, that's not actually why we're here tonight. We are here. This was a topic suggested, I believe, by Cats and Dogs. Is that right?
I think that's right. Yeah.
On clean card design. So clean design being a sort of a game design principle, but could maybe also extend to a few other areas of expertise as well. But clean card design is really just about making cards that are simple and easy to understand, but still offer a depth of skill and options and agency to the player. So um, we'll have some examples in a bit. But anything you'd like to add to that, 5-second elevator pitch of what clean card design is?
I mean, we'll go into some of the nuance, I suppose, but I think it's just easy to understate how important this is to a game. And this is a great topic. I know we've talked about complexity and the strategy of the game and gotten to some of the nuts and bolts of the cards, but I think this is worth looking at just for its own sake. And I also think it's something that's easy for veterans to kind of like lose sight of, right? Like you and I have been playing this game for a while. The more you're like invested and enfranchised with a game, you can kind of like get a little bit numb to the complexity, to the like growing like weight and baggage of unclean design as it builds up around you. And it's like very easy to like lose sight of how much of that there is. And then, you bring somebody new into the game, they're like, holy moly, there's a whole lot going on here. So I don't know, it's an important topic. And I don't mean that as a pointed knock or anything, just, for motivation as to why
that is a really
topic is important. Yeah.
It is a good point. Like we see these new cards and, we don't really think much of them because we already understand the mechanics behind the game and how everything works. We understand the full history. So we read something new and it doesn't really register as particularly complex for us. But I was just looking at some more recent Magic cards lately. I used to play Magic 15 years ago. No, actually, she's 25 years ago at this point. And I'm seeing like modern Magic cards, and I'm like, I have no idea what this means. But it's something that's probably second nature to people who've been playing Magic for 30 some years now. But for someone like me who is new to the game, quote unquote, new to the modern game, there's a ton of complexity added in those more recent card designs. Not just the increasing amount of text, but the complex mechanics that they use. And so I think the mechanics are also a part of this discussion too, and trying to make clean mechanics kind of help you build a clean game.
Yeah, and I'm going to put you on the spot here for a second. Quick draw, if you can kind of remember that moment. Because I tend to think of the Magic designers as folks who have like gone through the trough of sorrow on complexity and come out the other side, if not having like learned the lessons and like done and like be at a place where they're designing with that in mind, but at least having experienced it. When you're looking at those cards, you're like, oh, I don't know what these means. Is that because you were met with comprehension complexity? Like, I don't know what these keywords mean. Like there's some catching up I have to do. Or were you like, I know what all of these things do, but now putting them together in a way that lets me like appreciate how it would work in a game is a difficult leap. You know what I mean?
I think so. It was more comprehension complexity. So it was even these keywords that had helper text in them to explain what it meant. And I couldn't even get through the helper text without having no idea what it meant. Because I think embedded within that helper text are other keywords that have been added in the last 20 years that I didn't understand. And so, I see a couple Magic cards and I'm like, this is not the same game that I used to play at all. And I think it's partly because of that complexity.
Yeah, and you mentioned something too that I do want to dig into at some point, which was keywords and then the distinction between a keyword and ability word. And Magic is an interesting example because it's been around for so long, and this is something that I think it's harder to appreciate from perspective of games that haven't been around for so long. Your like clean design space is a much more limited resource than you may initially give it credit for, and it's like easy to burn through, right? Like you think about how many like single line creatures, single line ability creatures can I design, or like how many creatures without any text on them or cards without any text on them can I put out there? Like you burn through those like kind of quickly, especially if you're not constantly adding new keywords that you can throw on and just kind of have, the new taunt, the new skirmish. Oh, this is a new exalt. If you keep adding those things, you're adding complexity in a different way. And if you're not, then you've really just got a finite number of those things that you can make before you run out, and you have to start just swimming in more complex waters than you were before. Yeah.
And I think staying on theme is relevant too, because you can make some clean designs. You talked about you can have like so many, one-line cards, but if they're not sticking to the theme of the house, then that's not very clean either. Like if you have, if you're starting to add these mechanics that are historically in one house and you're putting them in a different house just to have another one-line card there, I don't consider that perfectly clean either, even though it is simple to understand. Maybe it has some strategy, but you're breaking sort of the thematic boundaries that have been set. So in my opinion, that kind of becomes a less clean design if you're ignoring those limitations that are already there.
I'm glad you said that too, because actually one of the cards that jumped to mind when you were talking about, breaking with thematic, like maybe breaking with flavor or the mechanical identity of a house, right, was information exchange. Like that was a card when I saw for the first time, I was like, oh, Logos steals? like really? Did Logos have any steal before information exchange, or was that the first one? Like it had effervescent principle. Well, Neurosiphon, I guess so.
Bat-Drone.
Maybe. Was Bat-Drone before? Bat-Drone was before. Okay, maybe
Bat-Drone
not.
was Coda, yeah.
But Neurosiphon is just like, or not Neurosiphon. Neurosiphon had the draw card, right, or rider on there. All right, yeah. Bat-Drone's kind of a weird one because you're basically, that's like an Umbra, right? You're just like, oh, Logos gets Umbra also,
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, Logos gets everything, that. And second, I think these are really like secondary or maybe even tertiary mechanics that belong to houses where they've done that since the beginning. Like there's not a ton of steal in Logos, but information exchange wasn't completely out of place when it came out. It was just, when you make it more spread out, like you have more of those mechanics, if you have more steal in Logos, then it becomes a problem. Like you have to stick with it as a secondary or tertiary mechanic, otherwise it becomes the primary and then you lose that flavor. And I kind of think that we have seen that happen with Equidon and Geistoid to some extent. Those two houses, like when they first debuted and then even in the second set after, I really feel like they broke those boundaries of a thematic set of mechanics that a house is given. They seem to be able to do everything. They had board wipes, they had stealing, they had card draw, efficiency, archiving, like they did seem to be a bit more of the modern Logos houses that had a little bit of everything.
Interesting. Maybe I should have picked on Untamed for getting some steal in LifeWeb. Does Untamed have steal other than LifeWeb?
Let's see. So I believe they do. I'm on the spot now.
We didn't know this was going to be one of the quiz episodes.
Yeah, this is a trivia episode. Apparently,
we're turning into trivia.
I do think there's a little bit more steal. Bog Spitter now.
Bog Spitter, okay.
But that's a new one. That's from Grim Reminders. Let's see here. I'm gonna have to look some stuff up. I'll come back to you on that. I think we're digressing a little bit from the topic because I think we really want to talk about just the design aspect and less the thematic aspect. That's just one part of it. But I think why don't we start by giving some examples of our favorite clean card designs in Keyforge. The three that I came up with originally are all from Coda, which we'll talk about in a minute, whether or not that's a coincidence. Nature's Call was like the first one that came to mind to me. It's really simple. You gain an Amber Pip, and then it's an action, Untamed. You play it, and you return any 3 creatures to their owner's hand. It's super simple, but it gives you the option of doing it either side. And I think a lot of the strategy from this card comes from deciding when is it better to do my own creatures versus my opponent's, and which creatures do you choose. You have the disruption that's possible if you choose 3 different houses of your opponent's. You have also some disruption if you choose your own Glimmer, for example, with some extra combos that's come involved with that. I just love that this is a single line and it has so many options for you to take advantage of. To me, is a prime example of a clean card design.
I want to riff on that for a second too. Maybe we'll go back and forth here. I really like Nature's Call. I think this is a great example. I also like it for one of the ideas that you talked about before, which was kind of projecting the mechanical identity of a house and also signaling the primary, secondary, tertiary abilities of a house. So you look at Nature's Call compared to Lights Out, compared to Fear, right? Lights Out is just better than Fear. Nature's Call is just better than Lights Out. They're subtly different, but they also say that these three houses can return creatures to hand, right? Dis can return an opponent's creature to hand with Fear, no Amber Pip. And that's kind of telling you that, like, it's not primary in this necessarily. It will do it, but it's more of as a defensive or tempo measure, right? Lights Out, all in the tempo play, a little bit stronger in the effect, and then Nature's Call much stronger in the effect, and then the ability to do it on your own is leaning into some of the amber generation potential that the effect offers. And so that's kind of like signaling the primary, secondary, tertiary, and also like how core and to what ends the different houses are going to lean into those mechanics. And actually one of the cards that I had on my list or in mind for myself was Hysteria, which is not a deep card, a simple card, but also highlights how Dis thinks about the act of returning a creature to hand, and that is going to be for disruption or as a way to deal with threats, as opposed to as like an offensive amber generation measure.
Yeah, and Hysteria was also from Coda originally, right?
Hysteria is also from Coda. Yes.
I thought so, but it's been so long that I'm a little rusty on like which cards came in any of the first three sets. Yeah, that one did come in all three of the first three. Great choice. Just to return each creature to its owner's hand. No Amber Pip on that one. Great card. Definitely has a lot of depth involved with the strategy for it too. So very good choice. I don't think we're gonna go like name a bunch of cards, but like another one of my favorites, just to get it out there, is Coward's End. Like Hysteria, you might look at it and think this is just a creature control, but Coward's End just destroys each undamaged creature, and then you gain 3 chains. But doing that allows you like many turns of setup to really maximize value from it, which is just fantastic. It's not just a simple gateway to Dis where you just destroy everything. There's a lot more depth and strategy involved with it too, that you and your opponent can take advantage of. So that to me makes it a better clean card design than Gateway to Dis. Gateway to Dis is pretty, it's clean in that it's simple, but it doesn't offer you that depth of strategy that Coward's End does.
Yeah, there's 2 facets of that too, right? And this kind of gets back to signaling the kind of primary, secondary status and saying, yeah, Dis gets this effect for the cost of 3 chains. Brobnar has to do some work, and the work that Brobnar has to do is very thematic with its at least supposed identity of fighting with Duders and throwing damage around the board and ending up with creatures that have damage on them. And I like these cards too because they also are a little bit instructive. And one of the cards that I had on my list, which was not very complex, not very deep strategically, but certainly very simple and clean, you could say, which was Virtuous Works, right? No text on it. As little text as you can get, right? But 3 nuggets, 3 printed amber. And this is sort of, these cards are sort of teaching the new player the value of a card or of an effect, right? Gateway to Dis is saying, like, wiping the board, that's worth 3 chains. This is probably a good deal because this is all the card does, and it's going to set you back 3 draws. And that signals something that this is likely a thing that you're going to want to do. And so wiping the board is at least in the designer's eyes, better most of the time than the loss of those 3 card draws. And similarly, the designers are kind of telling you, hey, new Coda player, 3 amber is better than a card, or is as good as a card. Like this is probably a fine like trade. You know what I mean? So in a sense, they're sort of like signaling the like early kind of like expected returns per card and what some of the trade-offs between card draw and effect ought to be. And I love having those signposts in the game, and also kind of those as level up mechanisms for players, as you can figure out very cleanly whether or not, when this deal that's, there's no like, there's no trickery, there's no hidden moves. It's just like a card, 3 amber. Do you want to be playing decks with these in it or not? Yes or no. Tells you a lot about how you value the cards and how the designers think you ought to value the cards.
Do you think Virtuous Works is a clean card design?
I think so. It's tricky. I think by definition you'd probably have to say yes. It's almost a little bit too simple, but I'd have to say. I mean, I think I'd have to say yes. Yeah, I don't know. Do you dislike it? you say no?
I love the card. I would not describe it as a clean card design. I would describe it as a simple card design. I might go so far to say it's vanilla. It's border. I would say a true vanilla would be just like 1 pip, do nothing. But this is being 3 pips, do nothing. But to me, like there's, when the card came out, we're talking about Coda now. Just forget the existence of Infernus for a minute here, and forget the existence of Strange Ordination, which is the DT version where you have to take 3 chains. We're just looking at Coda era Virtuous Works. You're always going to play it. You're always going to get that value from it. There's no downside. There's no strategy. You get it. You play it. It's free money. So for that reason, to me, it doesn't really feel like a clean design in the same way that some other cards might give you some options or allow you the ability to take advantage of it more. But I think let's talk about the difference between a clean card design and a vanilla card design.
Sure.
There's plenty of cards out there that are pretty vanilla that don't do anything. I would describe a lot of the mass mutation enhancers as vanilla. Sure, they provide you enhancements that do something for you on other cards, maybe on that card. I still think they're pretty vanilla. I think the nature of the mechanic of the enhancements makes them more clean card designs. But in a vacuum, those cards are, I think, decent examples of vanilla designs. And I think there's probably a lot in Coda as well that are pretty vanilla. I would say Urchin on its own is pretty vanilla. Not a bad design by any means. I wouldn't go so far to say it was clean, but I would probably describe it as vanilla.
Yeah, and our kind of like Magic listening audience person, Mom, I know you play Magic, so this is for you, right? They'll be familiar with the terms vanilla and French vanilla from Magic speak, which a vanilla creature would have no abilities, right? It's got a power, it's got a toughness, that's it. And then a French vanilla will have keywords but no other abilities. I think for Keyforge purposes, I could probably maybe extend that and say this is a card that doesn't have any additional effect on the game state once it's on the board, other than its ability to reap or fight. So you look at a creature with enhance. You look at Infomorph, right? It's a 4-power dude on the board. Yeah, it enhanced some things, but there's no additional cognitive load to processing an ability or that card's impact to the game state, other than that it's a 4-power dude on the board. Urchin falls into the kind of the quote unquote French vanilla because it has the elusive text, but once it's been played and its steal has been, the play effect may disqualify it, but for its cognitive load while on the board, that's less of an issue. But yeah, I think having lots of those can be helpful to kind of minimizing overall complexity. But I think I see what you mean, drawing a line between clean and vanilla, and calling Virtuous Works more vanilla than clean. From a design perspective, purely, I would say that I actually like Strange Ordination more than Virtuous Works, though if I've got to pick one for my deck list, I'll take the Virtuous Works every day. For sure. Yeah,
there's definitely places where you would have a Strange Ordination and be like, I think I actually need to discard this. So that weighing of like, do I want 3 chains or do I want 3 amber? I think is a brilliant question to pose to players, which makes that card a very clean design.
Mm-hmm. So this is interesting, and I guess when I was thinking of clean, maybe we could define it or dig into what it means to be clean. Strange Ordination is sort of asking you to, yeah, exactly, weigh the difference between 3 chains and 3 amber. So whereas Virtuous Works is the designer signaling, hey, this is above grade, or this is a reasonable thing to have in your deck, you should probably value the cards in your deck, at or below 3, around 3 amber generally, in terms of what you should be, getting out of them if you're thinking you're getting a good deal.
I think that's pretty high, but
maybe it's high, so on the higher end, sure, but it kind of sets a benchmark for you to compare against. And the only real challenge from that card is like, do I want these in my deck or not, right? You're always playing it, right? And by do I want this in my deck or not, I really mean, am I gravitating towards decks with this in it, or am I not gravitating towards decks with this in it? Strange Ordination, on the other hand, presents a deeper challenge to you as you play it, and it's not saying this is a benchmark for you to evaluate cards. It's saying this is a trade-off, and given that it's in your deck, which is more valuable, the 3 chains with the 3 amber, if you have to make the call, and which I actually like a lot from a game design standpoint too. And I think a lot of what, and I mean, maybe Virtuous Works was the right card for its day, but if we're introducing the tide, and if we're trying to have folks wrestle with and struggle with, whether or not taking the tide is worth it, then this is like a beautiful card to be having in the set.
Yeah, definitely agree. I want to talk about probably, I guess it was like a year and a half, 2 years ago. I made a large spreadsheet where I ranked every card on 3 different types of complexity. We had a complexity episode about this, and we talked about comprehension complexity, board complexity, and strategic complexity. And I thought about this again when thinking about this clean card design episode, because I think the easiest way that I could describe clean card design in that context is a card that I would have ranked as a 3 out of 3 in strategic complexity and a 1 out of 3 in comprehension complexity. And I haven't updated the sheet in a while, since probably before Amber Skies, but it does have, I have about 38 cards, I believe, that fit that criteria of being the highest in strategic complexity and the lowest in comprehension complexity. And as I go through this list, I would say there are some that definitely stand out to me as clean design. I already mentioned Coward's End. You mentioned Hysteria. But I think there's some other really good ones in here, like Witch of the Eye is just, simple, untamed creature where you reap and you take a card from your discard pile. Like, it's very easy to understand. It's very elegant. It's very thematic. Like Untamed being like the original kind of recursion house with things like regrowth as well. So it was very on brand for the house. Great design there. And then later on, like even Auto Encoder, I think is a really nice one. It's simple. You just discard a card and archive a card. That shows up here. Eaton's Jar, just play it, and your opponent can't play a specific card that you name, or no one can play a card that you name. So there's like a lot of good things in here that I think kind of highlight the relevance of this complexity analysis to what clean card design is.
I like that a lot. I was remembering the spreadsheet as well, and kind of idly wondering how it would look with some of the newer sets. And I wondered too, as I was looking through PV, and I isolating just the commons that are unique to PV. So the commons that were introduced here, and I was seeing like very few that had fewer than 3 or 4 lines of text, if only because of fate effects often taking what's effectively a 2-line effect when you play it to a 4-line card when you're looking at the play effect or the fate effect together. And just kind of like, this was my like frog in hot water moment where I was like, oh wow, there's like actually just twice as many lines of text on a lot of these commons today than we were seeing previously, and wondering if that was like, and if that was impacting kind of clean design at all, or if that's just like I don't know. Do you, like, does that strike you, or is not so much?
No, it does. I think when I was trying to think of clean card designs from PV and even from other recent sets, I was struggling a bit more to find them. And I think you're right. Like just having more text to read inherently makes it a less clean design, I would say.
Hmm.
Um, but just hearing what you're saying here about PV and the fade effects, one that sticks out to me as a pretty nice and clean design is Ensign Clark, which
Hmm.
is, by all intents and purposes, a vanilla creature, but it has a fate effect of fate destroy a friendly artifact. So um, I do think there is a lot of strategy involved with the prophecies and the fates, and that being a card that is so simple, where it's like it is literally just a body. It is a 3 power body that you could play and does nothing when it's on the board, or it has a fate effect that does something. It's very simple to understand, and it gives you an option as the player to decide which is best for the situation that you're in, playing this creature
Yeah.
or putting it under prophecy. So to me, that's one that stands out to me in PV as a very clean design, despite having a fate effect on it.
Yeah, I don't think it necessarily precludes a card from being a clean design, though I do think it's something that maybe you consider whether you need, a complex play effect and a complex fate effect. I don't know, but that's interesting. Ensign Clark is a cool one. There are absolutely, like, if you take the fate effects and play effects in isolations, a lot of like very straightforward. Very straightforward effects in each of them, um, which is cool. And I agree with you too that the mechanic itself has a lot of like strategic depth to it, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that more recent sets, like, is there something to this? Let's dig in a little bit more. Like, do more recent sets have fewer clean designs? And if so, or if not, why or why not?
Um, I do think that simple designs are not an infinite space to design within to kind of mine. So I think that I think it's very natural to reach for those clean, simple, straightforward, like hit it on the nose designs early on and just gobble them up, because it's there and you want your game to succeed, and you're going to reach for the low hanging fruit on the kind of clean design tree. And so I think it's very natural to see more of those sorts of designs in the early stages of a game,
Yeah,
especially one
totally.
with card pieces, with like a collectible card game or a card game. And that gets tougher and tougher to mine and to find those cards, especially as you layer more mechanics on top of games. So yeah, I do. I think there's like natural reasons for it, and I think you have to and I kind of alluded to Magic going down this path. They reached a point in their design, life cycle, where they realized that no, it's not an infinite design space, and you have to be a little bit intentional with some of these like simple, clean designs, and they don't get thrown around kind of willy nilly. They're like very intentional about when they're included. Yeah.
So I guess let me ask a different question then. Do you
Mm.
think that later expansions in a game like Keyforge or Magic, do you think later expansions should have clean design still, even though it is harder?
Yeah, I think so, and I think it's important to keep them in, especially if the later expansions are meant to be your entry points for new players. And this is a question I was going to throw at you. I was going to ask you how you feel about functional reprints, right? So we talked about Umbra and Bat Drone being essentially the same card. This was they were contemporaries, but effectively the same card but in different sets. Like, how would you feel if we saw a rebranded Bat Drone, but like still in logos? I guess wouldn't be logos. Let's say Umbra. We saw rebranded Umbra in shadows, but with like new art, new name, new flavor treatment, and it's just like, hey, it's back, but it feels newer because it's got a new name and new art.
Would it have the same exact text?
Same exact test, exactly the same card, different name.
I would not like that then.
You would not
I
like it.
No, I like reprints. I'm totally cool with reprints, especially ones that are good. And I think there is an art and there's a beauty to being able to find old cards and put them into new sets when they match. Like Witch of the
Mm.
Eye being a really great example. Bringing Witch of the Eye into Grim Reminders was fantastic because it fit the thematic element of the house of Untamed. It fit the thematic element of the set in Grim Reminders, being like a discard pile recursion type thing. And it's just a very clean design in general. So I think it's really cool when you can pick out those reprints and bring them into future sets and they still fit just as well or if not better than they did originally.
Mm. Yeah, I mean reprints on board with as well. I also don't mind. I also don't think I'd mind so much seeing what I'll call a functional reprint, which is you've functionally reprinted the card but under a new banner, so it's still an Umbra, but now it's the like I don't know whatever JT Bra, and it's 2 power shadows due to a skirmish that fights and steals, and we've kind of added some flavor, a little bit of spice, but kept the like overall kind of cognitive load or complexity of things fairly low. Um, I think rarity can help too. If you're talking about clean designs, you could think about pushing your designs which are intentionally less clean but add some splash value to the set, right? Like if everything is very simple, then maybe it's not as exciting for everybody, and some folks want to sink their teeth into something that's a little bit more of a puzzle. Uh, that's awesome, but you can push it to rare or uncommon or some of the special slots. Like I look at, say, I'm gonna pick on reiteration, right? Like maybe we don't need a fiddly play effect and a fate effect on the same common card, right? Maybe we have more Ensign Clarks, which are relatively vanilla cards that also present a fate option at common, and then maybe at like uncommon you start introducing some of the like, oh, pick one of these two, and then at like rare it's like, no, here's a puzzle that you need to really need to work through, or something that's very situational. But I think, yeah, it was Ensign Clark was a great example. I'd love to see more of those, and that's a great example of mining out some clean space within a new mechanic too. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And the rarity is a really good point. I think we talked about that as well with the complexity discussion of your most complex cards in Keyforge should be rares. You should not be printing complex cards at common because then every single deck that everyone opens is going to have a bunch of confusing stuff in it. You want those to be more niche and not for lack of a better word, less common
Mm.
than they are. And so I think being able to do like reiteration at common is like okay, like but if there's more and more commons that are as complex as reiteration is, then you just end up with like lots of text to read and understand and fiddle with. And I do probably agree that reiteration would have been better, not just from a um, like a balance perspective being an uncommon, but also from a clean game design aspect also would have been better as an uncommon.
Mm. Yeah, I'm actually gonna have to look up after this how many of the common fate effects are creatures, because I do think that is where you'll see a lot more of the cleanly designed cards with the fate mechanic on them, if only because you have much more opportunity to like to pull back on the like what the rest of the card is doing when there's a body attached to it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that you're giving me some ideas for other ways that PV I think could have been a bit more improved. If it could have been toned down in power level, obviously, but you might be able to do that by making more clean card designs at common instead of having these incredibly powerful cards at common. You would just kind of showcase the mechanic of the prophecies and what's capable, what players are capable of doing with that mechanic at common, and then getting into the more complex and powerful stuff maybe as you get to uncommon area. I know there's always the debate about do you want your most powerful cards to be commons as well, but I think you can do a mix. You can do a mix of more clean designs at common than there were, while still maintaining some of the powerful cards. But I think the issue that I think everyone would probably agree on is that there's too many powerful cards in PV.
some spicy ones. Some
Yeah,
spicy ones.
some real spice.
Some real
Um,
spice. Yeah.
there any other examples stick out to you from more recent sets of clean card designs?
Um, so riffing on your kind of one of the first cards you mentioned, which was Nature's Call, there and yeah, Equidon, which gets all the effects, right? Hoist Operations is one that's very cool and kind of builds on that theme of the like this card takes a creature not in hand in this time but to your archives, and front for a pipped is very cool, and it's kind of like either removal or recursion, and kind of shows you where, or maybe maybe not, but in if we're gonna kind of like lean into this idea, maybe shows you where this sort of bounce mechanic fits into Equidon's identity relative to some of the other houses. And yeah, you've got pull up stakes, which I think is maybe less clean, but I think Hoist Operations is a nice clean one. And if we're talking about showcasing Scrap, the Equidon creature with Scrap to archive a dude is also very, very, very nice, which I'm forgetting on.
Vested Herald.
Vested Herald, thank you. So that's
Yeah.
otherwise
It's got house
vanilla,
enhance too.
aside from the enhance, but otherwise vanilla. So great example, right? Like that Scrap keyword with without any other effect other than the body is very clean. And so I do like Vested Herald a lot, because I think not only is it not necessarily a bad card, right? It's got utility, but it can lead to some very powerful plays, but very kind of cleanly showcases the Scrap mechanic and how that bounce fits into kind of Equidon's identity as well.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I do want to talk about Equidon in a moment, for other reasons. But first, I want to give a shout out to our friend Narplet in Amber Skies
Okay.
as my favorite clean design from recent sets. It's just a 3-power Brobnar creature, and each of Narplet's neighbors gain versatile. There's tons of strategy this opens up, but perhaps one of the coolest parts of this is the flavor text, where I don't have it in front of me, but it basically says, like, I'm not like my father. And her father obviously being Narp, who says Narp's neighbors cannot reap. So this is like, you know, thematically it's a child goblin who's doesn't want to be like her dad, and she's rebelling against her dad. And the mechanic is the exact opposite of what Narp ended up being, which is just super cool. So you have this like thematic element. Actually, it's a giant, not a goblin. I apologize, Narplet.
Mm-hmm.
But it's got that theme to it too, and it's just one line, literally one line of text. It's got the theme to it. It adds tons of strategy because you can do different things with your battle line depending on who's versatile, and you can fight with multiple creatures in a row if they're all dying. There's just so many things this opens up. A really, really cool design is Narplet. It's definitely, I think, one of my favorite clean card designs from recent sets.
Yeah, what a great example. I love Narplet. I think coming in with a rating of 2.2 on DOK as well. If anything, I'd say underrated, because this can be a potent card. I would say witch status for sure, while on board. But yeah, beautiful all around package. Single line of text that opens up a whole host of options. Kind of like, well, a term we had used at one point was kind of lenticular nature of the card design, right? So very, very easy for kind of the new player to understand. You have to get versatile, so there's a keyword kind of like tucked in there, but once you've kind of digested versatile, yeah, you've got a single line of text, super easy to understand, but then the like where you take it from there, there's a whole lot of depth, and you can like, knowing this card is in your deck, all of a sudden you're thinking about organizing your battle line differently than you were before. And I love the like layers of challenge to veteran players and folks who are leveling up in the game that cards like this present, and all for the cost of a single line of text. Yeah, very, very cool card and great design.
Yeah. I said I was going to talk about Equidon for the reasons, and I'll do that now real quick. But we've been talking about clean card design, but what is there a name for the opposite of clean card design?
Dirty card design.
Dirty card design? I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Did you have one in mind?
No, I don't. I was hoping you had something clever. You usually do. But there's some Equidon cards to me that the first time I saw them, and even now, I don't understand why they are as difficult to implement as they are.
Hmm.
And thankfully, these are mostly rare or uncommon. But the first one that I saw, and it blew my mind as to like, why is this made? Why is this necessary? Was Barter in Games.
Oh.
It's probably a card a lot of people haven't even seen. It's an Amber Skies rare action, and it just says play. Each player reveals a random card from their hand or archives. Each player gains 1 amber for each amber bonus icon on their revealed card. Destroy each creature that shares a house with at least one of the revealed cards. Discard the revealed cards. I'm not going to read that again, but the point is that you probably don't remember what that card does after you read it. And you have to read it again just to understand what it's doing.
Yeah, I think I could. I was like, I think I got half of that at the end.
Yeah.
I would probably resolve it, read it, resolve it line from line. It wouldn't be like a like I remember what this does. Let me play it and resolve it from
Yeah.
memory sort of card. Yeah.
But I think that's kind of the problem too. If you have to just like resolve a card by step reading the entire thing, yes, you're supposed to resolve cards in order that they're written. That's fine. That's probably the easiest way to do this, but you shouldn't have to do that to understand a card, in my opinion. This is the one to me that's like uh, public enemy number one as far as dirty designs. I just don't understand
Mm.
why it has to be there, and why it has to have as many words as it does. You can even tell the font size is smaller on this card.
Oh, did they dial down the font size? Yeah,
They
yeah.
did.
Nice.
There's a
Nice.
few others with a dialed down font size as well that I can talk about. High Street Churn is one.
Okay,
Um,
Equidon theme. I'm sensing. Yeah.
yeah, there's an Equidon theme here. High Street Churn is another action. It's uncommon from Amber Skies. Play, choose a house on your opponent's identity card. Your opponent discards a random card from their hand until they discard a card of the chosen house or run out of cards. They fill their hand as if it were their draw card step. So you just have to really think about like like I'm naming a house. Okay, why am I naming a house? What is that house doing? You read through the rest of the card. And you're like, okay, they're going to discard random cards until they discard a card of that house or run out of cards. Okay, now I need to name a house. Wait, what do I want to name again? And you're just kind of like going in circles about like what am I trying to accomplish here with this card? Am I trying to discard their hand? Am I trying to not discard their hand? And which house do I have to call to make that happen? And it's
Yeah. So
random.
that it's random. This and there's some gymnastics you do to figure out to first. So there's a couple levels, right? The comprehension complexity is high, right? On your first read through, there's probably a wait what moment, and then you have to like go back to the beginning, and then there's on top of that strategic complexity, and kind of like marrying those two is not trivial. And usually when if you clear one hurdle, you can kind of move on to the next. But yeah, I think they're kind of this one scores high on the complexity for both sides, and it's yeah, it's one of the
Yeah.
cards that I play on TCO. I'm like, all right, let's see what happens. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We're just gonna go with the flow in those. I'm not gonna read the next one, but there's more examples of this. So to me, like Equidon got way too complex, I think, for its own good. But like three
So
sheets to the wind is it
yeah,
rare?
three sheets to the wind came to mind. Skazel and Buzz. I'm not sure which one comes to mind.
Oh, Skull and Buzz, the creature. Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
is this just like part of Equidon's like identity as a house, leans toward complexity, like we're the house that's going to present you with wacky trade-offs, like there's going to be a cost to every upside sort of a thing, like that's kind of like their core, and as a result every kind of like non-trivial effect is like if this then that, or like half this and like half full half empty, like which is it going to be, and you think that just kind of leads to lots of complexity.
I don't think it has to. I mean,
Mm.
there's some other really nice ones that I think, like de-escalation, pretty
Mm-hmm.
clean. Destroy each creature. Your opponent archives the top 3 cards of their deck. Very
Yep.
clean. Do I want to give
Especially
them 3 archives to wipe the board? it's a question you have to answer.
Especially if you've been kind of like following along at home with the progression of board wipes in Keyforge. This is a super clean design and riffs on past iterations of board wipes of the like destroy all creatures, do X or do 3 of X, and challenges you to be like, as I'm thinking about this in relation to Gateway to Dis, hey, did we not get a interesting? I'm almost now wondering like, why didn't we get a like in DT a like destroy all creatures if the tide is high or sort of a thing? Because like take 3 chain would have been like a beautiful card. I don't know. Anyway, I digress. But I love that de-escalation forces the comparison with the other cards, and yes, it's like very clean for new players, but also adds a little bit extra for kind of the long time player too.
Yeah. You did mention a few clean card designs in Ekwidon as well. So it's not like all of Ekwidon is unclean. It's not like other houses don't have dirty designs either. My least favorite card of all time, I think, just from complexity standpoint, was Key Forgery, which is the Shadows artifact, where it's like it's the similar story where you read the whole thing and you're like, okay, I need to name a house. Wait, what house do I want to name? And you have to read the whole thing again to understand like which house you want to name. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to just pick on Ekwidon. There's other things as well, but these cards, I don't know. I guess the nicest thing I can say about these cards is that their existence makes me appreciate the clean card designs even more.
I do appreciate that, and I will say too that we have yet to, at least from the Ekwidon ones that we've been rattling off, unless I missed anything, these have all come at rare. So like good on us at least for pushing.
High Street Churns and uncommon, but yeah.
High Street Churns and uncommon. Okay. Yeah. This may be a little much for uncommon. I agree with that. The other ones coming at rare is nice. I'm trying to think if there are any uncommon or any commons that that are particularly unclean.
For Ekwidon specifically?
Yeah, or in general.
I'm sure there are. I have the Amber Skies Ekwidon in front of me because that's where I saw a lot of the culprits were. But I'm sure there's definitely some commons that are less clean.
Oh, Pied Viper from the chat from Murph here. Interesting. There's this one's interesting. This one's interesting.
Hate it. I don't hate the design on it. I don't think it's. Is Murph saying that it's a dirty one?
It's a dirty one. This dirty snake.
Dirty snake. You know me. I love exchanging control of creatures. So
you do. This is playing right to your. This is yeah. I don't know. Going for the fiddle or the piper pun here, but I appreciate what they did flavorfully with the card. I will say that this is a card that I had to read a couple times to like fully get what was going on, and it has probably the first time I played it, maybe I didn't like read it as closely as I should have, but there was definitely like, oh, why didn't this creature move? Oh wait, it's the other way, sort of a thing, and that's probably on me. But yeah, it is a like warping effect for a common. Yeah,
I would say so. That's a good point. It probably is a bit too much as a common. It's not a great card a lot of the time too, because it is elusive, so they can't just easily fight it and get rid of it. But if they have a large board and you have this out there to try to control their board, they'll probably just fight twice and still keep their advantage. But it's I don't hate it. I guess I can see the point when we talk about it in the context of the rarity. I would say Pied Viper is possibly a bit too much for a common.
Though A plus on the puns and flavor for this card, 100%. How about from the like as a common? So specifically as a common, yeah, maybe the effect is a little bit too warping, and the complexity a little too high. How do you feel about commons specifically that you have to discard a majority of the time? Like,
Bad Penny.
Bad Penny, I think, is a very clean, straightforward design. However, at common, is it like and Pied Viper? I think Pied Viper is a discard a majority of the time.
I think so too.
Yeah, I mean, you're just setting yourself up to accept a whole bunch of Dino Pinatas, but yeah, I don't know. Does that factor into the design of the card? Like designing a card at common that's going to be off discarded, is that like unclean in itself?
No, I kind of think it's especially clean because it teaches you as a player when you need to learn how to discard cards and which cards are good and which cards are bad. If Bad Penny was a rare, very few people would have bad pennies that they see all the time, and it wouldn't have the reputation it does. But also, it wouldn't have taught us because like this is one that everyone always talks about. Bad Penny, like the first time you see it, if you come from other games, you're like, oh my gosh, this creature never dies. Like you can't kill it; it just always goes back again. It sounds great.
Yeah.
But then when you realize in the context of Keyforge and Tempo, you realize how bad it is. Being at common allows you to more quickly learn that lesson. And so I think having commons that are generally bad cards that should be discarded more often than not, to me, is a good thing for teaching players about how to best take advantage of the game.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't disagree. I'm just kind of scrolling through some of the other PV ones. I'm like, and like the ones with more lines of text jumping out at me. Not that that's necessarily the like end all be all for cleanliness of design. Yeah, parallel thinking is an interesting one. I don't know if I would say that I could see that as more of like an uncommon effect than a common one, but it's getting a little bit nitpicky.
Yeah. Well, there are some good PV clean cards, I would say. I also want to make sure we're watching the clock. So
yeah,
we do have a Kagi match to get to tonight. But are
it
there
ain't
any?
gonna,
Is
it
there
ain't
any?
gonna
Actually, I
commentate
did want
itself.
to ask you if you could briefly talk about this.
Yeah.
We did find an article which we can share in the show notes that kind of talked about clean game design in general. It was more geared towards board gaming, but one of the things that the author said was there's a lot of similarities to like clean software development, clean coding.
Mm.
And you as an engineer, maybe you could talk a little bit about that and the similarities that you see, because there are a lot of software developers and programmers that play Keyforge, as you know.
It does feel like there's an awful lot of us around, so that's pretty cool. And I did like that article. It resonated with me on a bunch of fronts. So there were four kind of principles, if I'm remembering right, from the article. And I'm doing this from memory, so catch me if I'm wrong. And these are all kind of like gonna be very familiar to the software crowd out there. So there's the KISS principle, right? Keep it simple, stupid. So I agree with this. Live my life by this philosophy. And the general idea is that simple is better than complex. I think there's a tendency to steer towards complex, especially as you're like building a game over a long period of time. For the reasons we mentioned, you mind the complexity, you mind the simple designs early, and then you layer on mechanics, and eventually you're a frog who's wondering why it's so hot, and you can't understand what the new players coming in can't understand what they're doing, so keep it simple, stupid. Love that, absolutely. This is as true for software and game design, so that resonates with me. Some of the others, if I'm remembering right, there was a you ain't gonna need it principle. So YAGNI is something that software engineers like to say, and I think that this is probably a good one for game design too, right? So it's very tempting to just throw more rules in because more rules are fun. If you're remembering like games of Cones of Dunshire, right? It's like, right. And there's an audience for more rules. Like to me, that falls into the trap of interesting at the sake of fun, and very often fewer rules can lead to as much, if not more fun, if you're worrying less about the rules and more about letting the rules guide you toward the fun, right? I tend to think of the job of the designer to create a system where the players are having an enjoyable experience, as opposed to, doing lots of bookkeeping and keeping track of rules. Now, if you like bookkeeping or keeping track of rules, then like awesome, but I don't think that's the goal in and of itself of the design, right? Then going on from there, there was the single responsibility principle, which is going to be very familiar to my nerd friends. And the idea there too was really just to make sure that it's very clear what each of the components of your game is doing and have it do one thing well. This one, I don't know. Does that resonate with you, or do you feel like that's pretty reasonable?
I know it doesn't resonate to me for professional reasons, but in game design reasons, I think it does. It's so from the article it says, it states that every game system and a mechanic should have responsibility over a single part of a game, and it should encapsulate that part. So it's just kind of saying that don't make a mechanic that is intended to interact with every other mechanic in a very specific way. Make your mechanics more concentrated on what they're supposed to be doing, because as you intertwine this stuff more and more together, that's when you get into trouble. If you say like, well, I don't actually need this mechanic, but it's such an integral part of this other thing that I'm doing that I can't remove it. So like you get into trouble when you do that. So I think the single responsibility principle, to me, does resonate for games.
Yeah, I think people also underestimate how much depth of strategy you can allow for with simple pieces and highly focused pieces, right? You look at chess as an example, very simple rules, very few pieces, but incredible depth and complexity and strategy to be had there. So absolutely keeping things simple, shedding unnecessary rules, and focusing on your single responsibilities can still lead to very deep and rewarding game experiences. And now I have to remind myself of the last one.
It was the loose coupling principle.
Yeah, this was interesting. I thought they were stretching to like make the connections here, but I also don't think it's necessarily wrong. And 100% like love thinking about both game design and sort of engineering as sort of system building, and making clean systems is great. And if you can have your individual components depend less and know less about the inner workings of each other, and you can swap them around more easily, that's great. That means you can design mechanics that plug into different sets without being too dependent of the particulars of one set or another, say, right? So actually on the Magic side of the world, I know this is not a Magic podcast, but they have this term that they use to describe mechanics, which is parasitic, right? And they will talk about parasitic mechanics being ones that need a whole lot of support and are often very difficult to print outside of the set that they were initially printed in. So something like the Tide is very cool, offers a lot of like interesting decision space, but it's very hard to take a card that has a Tide relevant mechanic on it and print it in the new VM set or Discovery, because you just need a lot of support for the Tide for it to make sense to reprint. Similar for like the Fate mechanic, right? We're probably not gonna see cards with a Fate effect reprinted in non-prophecy sets, because there's a whole lot of baggage that comes with supporting the Fate mechanic, right? Yeah. You need prophecies, you need enough Fates for it to make sense, versus something like Entrench, or something like even Overwhelmed, right? Or Scrap,
Haunted.
Right? Yeah. So these are beautiful, and getting back to kind of like the idea of conserving simplicity and clean designs, like when you come across a mechanic like that is going to be reusable and is not very parasitic, that's when you reach for the name that's more reusable and kind of more modular. So we're going to call it Scrap. We're not going to call it, I don't know, haunted graveyard dude, like discard from hand lots of things, right? Mechanic, right?
And you're not going to have like a 37th card like the Tide that dictates what haunted is. You're just going to kind of make the mechanic as simple as you can so that you can put it into the rules and it's very easy to understand and everyone knows what it is, so you can go back to haunted in future sets without an issue.
Totally. And haunted was a great take on the Tide at a sort of a sort of a great retake of the tide mechanic in a less parasitic way, right? So you're not thematically referencing the tide. It's not going to be like a what are they talking about moment when you see tide as an ability word or a keyword mentioned in text, and there's nothing about water or anything in the set's flavor. Whereas haunted, okay, maybe there's a little bit of flavor wrapped up in it, but its ability explains that away a decent amount, and it can make sense with a few cards of it in that set. Yeah.
Well, I dropped the link to that article in the chat here on Twitch. We're also going to put it in the show notes. It's short read, but it's interesting, especially if you're into your own game design. But I do think we are going to have to wrap it up now, because we are going to be streaming a Kagi match in a few moments. But I'll let you have the last word on clean card design if there's anything else you want to add.
Got nothing else. Let's go see some good clean Kagi fun, I guess.
I hope so. Yeah.
Awesome.
Do we have a sponsor this evening?
As it happens, we do. This episode of Bottom Beaker is brought to you by Fizzy Gruen Seltzer, the only soft drink that generously gives your opponent a little something extra. Every can is infused with sparkling swamp essence and a complimentary splash of amber for whoever's standing across from you. It's crisp, refreshing, and strategically questionable. Perfect for players who believe hydration should come with consequences. Fizzy Gruen Seltzer, because sometimes the real power move is helping your opponent. Quick Draw, I tried some Fizzy Gruen Seltzer and I didn't like it at first, but it is growing on me. And how about you? You ever find that you could enjoy some Fizzy Gruen Seltzer?
I have to ask if this is an alcoholic seltzer. I've not ever had an alcoholic seltzer before.
I think you're thinking of the DT variant when the tide is low. Yes.
The deep water. Yes.
The deep waters, indeed. Yes. Cool. Well, folks, thank you, Fizzy Gruen, excuse me. And I want to also let you know that Bottom of the Beaker is recorded live on Wednesday evenings at 9:30 Eastern Time, right here at twitch.tv/sloppylabwork. You can find recordings of our past shows and other streams over at youtube.com. We are at Sloppy Lab Work over there. And for the very best content, is it 34? No, 57 times distilled and scraped from the bottom of the beaker. Search for that very phrase in your podcatcher of choice, and we'll be there, ready to throw down some dirty designs with you. All that and more at sloppylabwork.com. And Quick Draw, do you have any words for the folks getting off at the final audio stop?
Just thanks everyone for listening, and stay clean and sloppy.
Stay sloppy indeed. Not sloopy.
No.
Not sloopy. All right, we're going to shut this one down. We're going to stop the old Zencastr recording, and we're going to get ready to talk about some Kagi play here, which is very exciting. Let me adjust
Do we want to cut the stream and restart the stream, or do you want to just stick around?
I think for making our kind of Kagi library clean, we should probably cut it and then restart it.
Probably should, because it'll keep the Sloppy Lab Work VOD clean as well.
I dig it. All right, folks, on the chat, we'll see you in a few.
We'll be right back.
We'll be right back.